Welcome to Community Church. I'm Pastor Cameron. This is Sermons in 7, the Gospel of Mark. And so this is a time where we take about 7 minutes and we are just walking through the Gospel of Mark. And so today we find ourselves in chapter 8, verses 27 through 30. And this is where Peter confesses Jesus as the Christ, as the Anointed One. You can find the parallel version of this in Matthew chapter 16. Well, so if you've been trekking with us, what have we found? We found in the Gospel of Mark that Mark is writing to show that Jesus is victorious. Jesus is victorious over sin. Jesus is victorious over death, over hell, over nature. And so we see this, and it's amazing to see. Well, in chapter 7, Jesus confronts the Pharisees, and he pretty much tells them, hey, guess what? You guys are trying to make these traditions that you have, you're trying to put them above the law of God. And actually, defilement comes from your heart. You know, you got to it's the heart of the issue. Well, he goes on there, and he moves from a confrontation with the Pharisees to a place in Tyre and Sidon where he sees this Gentile woman. Her daughter is demon-possessed, and she shows remarkable faith by just pressing forward to try to get a hold of Jesus. Jesus continues healing people. In the first part of chapter 8, he feeds the 4,000. The Pharisees are asking for a sign, and then Jesus tells his disciples, hey, beware of the Pharisees. Beware of the leaven of the Pharisees. Those things that will permeate our life, that sin. He heals people, and then we come to this area, this text. Mark chapter 8, verse 27. Now Jesus and his disciples went out to the towns of Caesarea Philippi, and on the road he asked his disciples, saying to them, who do men say that I am? So they answered, John the Baptist, but some say Elijah, and others one of the prophets. And he said to them, but who do you say that I am? Peter answered and said to him, you are the Christ. Then he strictly warned them that they should tell no one about him. So in these 4 verses, we're going to find Jesus asking 2 very, very important questions that kind of build on one another. The first question he asks is, he says, who do others say that I am? I want to know what people are saying about me. The other question he asks, he brings it onto a more personal level. And he says, okay, I got that. That's who people say that I am. But now I want to know, who do you say that I am? I want to know what you say, what's in your life, what's personal to you. Who do you say that I am? This is where we get Peter's confession. Well, it's important to note, though, that where is he asking these questions? It says on the road as they go to Caesarea Philippi. A lot of commentators were saying that the disciples had been with Jesus for about 2 years at this point. They're following him. They're learning from his example. They're hearing his words. They're listening to what he has to say. And then he brings them into a region, Caesarea Philippi, named for Caesar, actually Augustus, and for Herod. And so there was a temple to Augustus there. And so in this religiously diverse, polytheistic maybe, area is when he gets to the heart of the matter. Who do people say that I am? Now, if you ask this question to anyone, you're probably going to get some different answers. If you go out on the street and start asking people, I'm sure you've seen those videos where people go out and they start asking people, who do you think Jesus is? And you get a number of different answers. Well, here in the text, they say, some people say that you're John the Baptist, which is a little awkward because John the Baptist and Jesus were together a lot of the time. And so people knew that they were 2 different individuals. Some people say Elijah. Well, again, this is, not accurate. Interestingly enough, that Elijah had a ministry of judgment and Jesus comes to seek and to save the lost. So they got it wrong. Others say one of the prophets, and that's a little bit accurate, right? Jesus was a prophet, but he was also God. He was also our king. He was also our high priest. And so the same, that they didn't get it right? People didn't get it right back then. People don't get it right now. You ask this question, it might be, oh, Jesus was a good man. He was a good teacher. He was, we should follow his example. But there's more to that. Right? You might get people who are a little antagonistic, say, well, he was a fraud. He was a fraud. It doesn't matter. He didn't even exist, right? But it's important to know what people say Jesus, or who people just say Jesus is. It's also, though, he brings the question to a personal level. He says, who do you say that I am? This is the most important. In Matthew 16:16, which is a parallel version of this, he says, this is what Peter says, the Christ, the Son of the living God, Christ, the anointed one, Son of the living God, deity, which parallels what? Mark 1:1. This is the gospel of Jesus Christ, the good news of Jesus Christ, the anointed one, Son of God. So Peter is saying, you are Messiah. You are Messiah. And Jesus then says what? Tell no one. Tell no one about this. Why? Because it wasn't time yet. Think of the political ramifications of what this would happen. The religious leaders were threatened by him. The common folk, the people wanted a sign. Really quickly, though, today, in way of application, know what others say about Jesus because it helps us stand. What do you say about Jesus? Who do you say that Jesus is? Because that, my friends, is the most important. Do you believe he's the Christ? Do you believe he's the Messiah?